Lou leaned against the wall of a dimly lit alley, watching the city pulse with life. Neon signs flickered overhead, illuminating the grime and grit of the streets below. To the casual observer, this might seem like any other night in Neo-Shanghai, a cacophony of laughter, chatter, and the ever-present hum of drones zipping overhead. But Lou knew better. Here, in the shadows, the real game was afoot. "Hey, you got the parts or not?" a voice called out from the shadows, breaking his reverie. It belonged to a lanky man with a gaudy cybernetic arm that looked like a prop from a bad sci-fi movie. Lou smirked, knowing the buyer was just as desperate as he was. "Sure, if you want to pay double for the new and improved model," Lou shot back, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Or are you hoping for a discount on the junk?" The buyer's face twisted into a scowl. "You're lucky I even came to you. I could get this anywhere." "Yeah, anywhere that doesn't charge you an arm and a leg," Lou replied, gesturing at the man's shiny limb. "No wonder you're looking for cheap. Looks like your last deal went south." As the buyer fumed, Lou felt a thrill. This was his game, where the desperate met the savvy. He thrived in the chaos, spinning jokes even as he lived on the knife's edge of survival. Just as he was about to seal the deal with a cheeky quip about overpriced cybernetics, the world shifted. A sharp sound cut through the alley, mechanical footsteps. Lou's heart raced. He turned, barely having time to register the sleek, armored figures emerging from the shadows before they lunged at him. "Get him," one of the goons barked, a bulky man with a cruel grin that made Lou's stomach drop. In an instant, Lou was on the ground, pinned by a heavy boot. He looked up at the menacing faces looming over him, and for a moment, he felt the weight of the city pressing down, the laughter fading into silence. "You've been selected, Lou," the goon said, a twisted satisfaction in his voice. "Congratulations. You're the next prey in the cyber hunt. Is this some kind of joke?" Lou managed, forcing out a laugh that felt far too high-pitched for comfort. "Not even a little," the man replied. "You're about to become sport for the elite. Good luck." As they dragged him away, Lou's mind raced. The cyber hunt, a sadistic game where the wealthy hunted the poor for entertainment. It was a tale told in whispers, a horror story for those who couldn't afford the luxury of denial. And here he was, plucked from obscurity to become a target in a twisted sport. The next morning, Lou found himself in an unfamiliar environment, an abandoned warehouse rigged with high-tech gadgets and screens displaying feeds from all over the city. The walls were adorned with monitors showcasing other poor souls, a grim gallery of prey. He could see the shadows of his fellow captives, some pacing, others sitting in despair. Lou's heart sank. "Welcome to the hunt," a booming voice echoed through the space. Lou turned to see Mr. Zhao, the notorious tycoon whose wealth was only rivaled by his cruelty. He wore a suit that shimmered like it was woven from threads of gold, and his smile was as cold as the steel that lined the room. "Today marks a new chapter in the fight for immortality," Zhao continued, his voice smooth and practiced. "While the elite are busy prolonging their lives, we will have our fun with you, live-streamed for our enjoyment." Lou clenched his fists, every instinct screaming at him to escape. The odds were against him, but he wasn't about to let fear take hold. He had always been quick on his feet. On the streets, you learned to dodge and weave, to play the game better than those who held the cards. He looked around at the other captives, searching for potential allies. "Anyone got a plan?" he called out, trying to inject a bit of levity into the grim atmosphere. A woman with bright blue hair stepped forward, her eyes scanning the crowd. "We need to work together. This isn't just about surviving, it's about turning the tables. I'm Mina, by the way." Mina, huh? Lou grinned, relief washing over him. Do you come with a side of technical genius? Because I've got a feeling we're going to need it. Mina smirked, her confidence infectious. You could say that. I've been in this game before. They underestimated me, and I escaped. We can do it again. With that, Lou felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. As they strategized, he couldn't help but admire Mina's calm under pressure, her knowledge of the game's tech, and how to manipulate it to their advantage. Together, they plotted their escape, sharing ideas and formulating a plan to outsmart their captors. The game began, and Lou quickly found himself in a nightmarish maze of neon-lit streets and dark alleyways. The rich were armed with state-of-the-art tracking systems, while he and Mina were forced to rely on their wits. The first encounter with their hunters came sooner than expected. Run! Mina shouted, pulling Lou into a narrow alley as the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. He could hear the hunters laughing, relishing the chase. Is it too late to call this off? Lou joked, breathless. Shut up and keep moving. Mina shot back, grinning despite the danger. Using every trick in the book, they dodged and weaved through the streets. Lou's heart raced as he led Mina through a series of twists and turns, relying on his familiarity with the city. Each narrow escape felt exhilarating, and his confidence grew. They reached a crowded marketplace, a chaos of vendors shouting and patrons bartering. Lou spotted an opportunity. Follow my lead, he whispered, an idea forming in his mind. He plunged into the crowd, ducking low as he maneuvered between stalls. Mina stayed close, her tech-savvy skills coming to play as she hacked the market's security system, creating diversions that threw their hunters off course. Just as they thought they were safe, one of the hunters cornered them, a manic gleam in his eye. You think you can run forever? He taunted. Not forever, Lou replied, a sly grin spreading across his face. Just long enough to turn the tables. And so began Lou and Mina's relentless game of cat and mouse, each encounter pushing them closer to the truth behind the hunt and the darker motives driving it. Lou's quick thinking and Mina's tech skills became their lifelines, each victory stoking the fire of rebellion within him. The world they inhabited was a cruel parody of life, but Lou was determined to rewrite his story. With every narrow escape, he became more than just prey. He was a force to be reckoned with, armed with wit, courage, and a growing alliance of fellow captives. As they prepared for the final confrontation with Mr. Zhao and his elite hunters, Lou felt the weight of their shared struggle. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about exposing the corruption, the greed, and the twisted game that had turned their lives into entertainment. As Lou and Mina gathered their resolve, the time for confrontation was fast approaching. They had gathered a small group of fellow captives who were equally determined to fight back. Each one had a story to tell, a life stolen by the rich who treated them like mere pawns in their perverse game. There was Eddie, a former street racer whose agility rivaled that of any cyber-enhanced athlete, and Tara, a brilliant engineer who had once designed security systems but now found herself on the wrong side of the tracks. Together, they forged an unlikely alliance, each bringing their unique skills to the table. The night of the final hunt arrived, cloaked in tension and excitement. Lou could feel the pulse of the city thumping beneath his feet, a reminder that they were all part of something larger, a rebellion against the twisted cycle of wealth and power. He shared a determined look with Mina, whose fingers flew across her portable console, hacking into the city's surveillance systems to turn them into allies rather than foes. Let's give them a show they won't forget, Mina said, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Right, but let's make sure it's not our last show, Lou replied, grinning. What's the plan? Simple, she said, her voice steady. "We split into 2 teams. Eddie and Tara will create a distraction at the gala where the hunters are gathered. They'll be flaunting their wealth and power, showing off their latest tech. That's when we strike." Lou nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "And what about us? You and I will infiltrate their network. We'll expose them to the world and shut down the hunt once and for all." The stakes were high, but they had come too far to turn back now. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they prepared to set their plan in motion. The gala was a perfect target, an event brimming with influential figures, where they could unveil the truth in front of an audience that needed to see the grotesque nature of their entertainment. The night sky was deep blue, punctuated by the flickering lights of the high rises that loomed like silent sentinels. Lou and Mina slipped through the shadows, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the city. As they approached the venue, a grand structure draped in lights, they could hear the muted sounds of laughter and clinking glasses from inside. Eddie and Tara had already set their distraction in motion. As Lou and Mina entered the lavish gala, they could see the wealthy elite mingling, oblivious to the chaos brewing outside. Lou felt a mix of disdain and determination as he spotted Mr. Zhao, his figure towering among the crowd, his demeanor one of self-satisfaction. "Stay low," Mina whispered, scanning the room for security. They moved through the throngs of guests, their eyes fixed on a cluster of screens set up to showcase the hunt, real-time feeds from the streets, where desperate individuals were darting through the night. Lou's heart sank. The footage was disturbing, but it fueled his fire. "We need to get to those controls," he said, pointing to a booth in the corner, manned by a bored techie who was busy scrolling through his device. "Let me handle this," Mina said, her fingers deftly tapping away at her console. "Just keep an eye on the door." Lou positioned himself strategically, his back against the wall, pretending to be just another guest. He watched as Mina approached the booth, her demeanor calm and confident. With a few quick movements, she was plugged into the system, her face illuminated by the glow of the screens. "Almost there," she murmured, and Lou felt a surge of anticipation. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Eddie and Tara dashed in, a cloud of chaos trailing behind them. They had managed to draw the attention of several hunters, shouting and causing a scene. Lou could see the confusion ripple through the crowd as guests turned to watch the commotion. "Now, Mina," Lou urged, his heart racing as he saw Zhao's eyes narrow in their direction. With a final keystroke, Mina grinned. "We're live. Let's expose this whole charade." Lou stepped forward, his voice rising above the din. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the real show." He gestured toward the screens. "While you sip your champagne and laugh at our expense, this is what you're really celebrating." The crowd's laughter faltered as they turned to the screens. Lou watched as the faces of hunted individuals flashed across the monitors, fear and desperation etched into their features. Gasps filled the room, the realization dawning on them that they were complicit in this monstrous game. Zhao's expression twisted into rage. "Shut it down," he roared, but Mina was already 2 steps ahead. "Too late," she shouted, fingers flying over the console. "The feed is live, and the whole city is watching." Lou felt a rush of triumph as he noticed several attendees pulling out their devices, recording the feed, sharing it on social media. The truth was out, and there was no way to put it back. "Let's go," Mina shouted, pulling Lou toward the exit as the chaos unfolded around them. Eddie and Tara were making their escape, and they dashed through the throng of horrified guests and furious hunters. They slipped into the night, breathless and exhilarated. The air outside was electric, filled with the sounds of sirens and the shouts of the crowd. Lou could feel the shift in the atmosphere, a sense of awakening. Did we do it? Eddie asked, glancing back at the gala, where the lights flickered like dying stars. We sure did, Lou replied, grinning widely. But it's not over yet. They regrouped in a hidden spot, where the shadows swallowed them. The city around them buzzed with energy, people were rallying, the news spreading like wildfire. Lou pulled out his phone, scrolling through the posts flooding social media, the hashtag cyberhunt trending. The hunters were now the hunted, public opinion had shifted in an instant. We need to capitalize on this momentum, Mina said, her eyes sparkling with determination. This isn't just about exposing the hunt, it's about dismantling the system that allows it to exist. Lou nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him once more. You're right. We can't let this moment fade. We need to mobilize people, get them involved. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Lou felt a surge of hope. They were no longer victims, they were agents of change. They began to formulate a plan, using Mina's tech skills and Lou's street smarts to connect with others who had been affected by the hunts, those who had lost family members, friends, lives. With each passing hour, their coalition grew stronger. They rallied others from the underground, bringing in voices from every corner of the city. People were ready to fight back against the oppressive system that had kept them down for too long. Lou became a figurehead, using his sharp wit to inspire and motivate, while Mina continued to coordinate efforts behind the scenes, her expertise invaluable. As they prepared for their next steps, the city began to change. Protests erupted, the streets filled with people chanting against the hunts, demanding justice and accountability. The elite, once untouchable, found themselves under scrutiny, their lives and secrets laid bare for the public to see. But just when it seemed like victory was within reach, Mr. Zhao struck back. Using his influence, he launched a smear campaign against Lou and his allies, painting them as violent criminals. The media twisted the narrative, attempting to regain control of the story. Lou felt the weight of despair creeping in as he saw the headlines and news reports. It was a brutal reminder of the fight they were up against. We need to counter this, he told the group, determination coursing through him. We can't let them silence us. Mina's fingers flew over her device. I can dig up more dirt on Zhao. There has to be something that can turn the tide in our favor. They worked tirelessly, gathering evidence of corruption, exploitation, and the darker dealings of the elite. With each discovery, Lou felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were fighting not just for themselves but for all those who had suffered in silence. Finally, they struck gold, a hidden document detailing Zhao's illegal dealings, the extent of his manipulation, and the blood money exchanged to keep the cyber hunt alive. They prepared to expose it, ensuring that the world would know the truth. The night they released the information was electric. They gathered their supporters, broadcasting the details live. Lou stood in front of the camera, his heart racing. This is the reality behind the cyber hunt, he declared, his voice steady. This is the man who profits off our suffering. We will not be silenced, and we will not be hunted anymore. The response was overwhelming. The public rallied around them, their message resonating deeply. People began to share their own stories of loss and survival, igniting a movement that was impossible to ignore. The elite were backed into a corner, their power waning as more individuals began to stand up and fight against the oppressive system. As the tide turned, Lou felt the thrill of victory wash over him. They had not just exposed the hunt, they had sparked a revolution. But it came at a cost. Zhao retaliated fiercely, employing private security forces to silence dissenters. Lou's group became targets, hunted in their own right. They had to remain vigilant, constantly on the move to evade capture. Every step we take, we have to be smart about it, Mina advised, her expression serious. We're at war now, and they won't go down without a fight. Lu nodded, feeling the gravity of their situation. They had gone from prey to fighters, but the line was still razor thin. He looked at the faces of his friends and allies, seeing their determination reflected in their eyes. We've come this far together, he said, rallying them once more. We can't give up now. We've shown the world the truth. Now it's time to finish what we started. As they plotted their next move, the city buzzed with energy, a transformation in the air. The rich could try to hide, but they could no longer escape the truth that had emerged from the darkness. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and the people were ready to rise. Weeks passed, filled with tension and strategy. Lu and his allies worked to secure safe houses, build networks, and gather resources for the final showdown with Zhao and his forces. It was all leading to a climactic battle, one that would determine the fate of many. On the day of the showdown, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Lu stood with Mina and their allies, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They had coordinated with several grassroots organizations, preparing for a mass protest outside Zhao's corporate headquarters. This is it, Lu said, looking at the crowd gathering before them, their faces a mix of fear and determination. This is our chance to show them that we will not be hunted, that we will not be silenced. As the rally began, voices rose in unison, chanting for justice. The energy was electric, a palpable force against the oppressive regime. Lu felt a rush of empowerment wash over him. They were not alone. But just as they began to feel the momentum, Zhao's forces arrived, armed and ready to suppress the uprising. The tension escalated as both sides squared off, a standoff that could turn violent at any moment. Stay together, Lu shouted, gripping Mina's hand. We'll face this as one. As the confrontation unfolded, the chants of the people grew louder, drowning out the threats of the elite. Lu felt a fierce pride swell within him. They were reclaiming their power, refusing to back down. The clash erupted, chaos reigning as the two sides collided. Lu fought with everything he had, his movements fueled by a fierce desire for justice. Beside him, Mina worked to disable the security systems, using her tech skills to turn the odds in their favor. The struggle was fierce, but the people's spirit was unbreakable. Each act of defiance ignited a spark, and soon, the tide began to turn. Lu and his allies pressed forward, their resolve unyielding. Finally, as the dust began to settle, Lu found himself face to face with Mr. Zhao. The man was a shadow of his former self, panic and anger flickering across his features. Do you really think you can win? Zhao sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. Not just win, Lu replied, his voice steady. We're here to end this. With that, the crowd surged forward, drowning out Zhao's protests. Lu felt the rush of triumph wash over him as they pushed the elite back, reclaiming their city and their dignity. As the sun set over Neo-Shanghai, casting a warm glow on the scene, Lu stood with Mina and their friends, the reality of their victory sinking in. They had fought not just for themselves but for a future free from the horrors of the hunt. The streets were filled with hope, laughter, and the promise of change. Together, Lu said, looking at each of his friends, we did this. Together, we turned the tide. And as the city celebrated, Lu felt the weight of a new dawn, one where they could write their own story, free from the shadows of oppression. In that moment, he realized they were no longer just prey. They were warriors, and they had reclaimed their lives.